Hi YouTubers, I am going to show you how to make edible sugar cookies using Polymer Clay Technique. I'm going to post a link to the video that shows you how to make the flowers in polymer clay, and then you can transpose that into sugar cookie dough. So I'm going to be making 1 pound of butter mass, so that's going to be enough for half a portion of the plain cookie dough, and then 3 portions of the green, purple, and yellow colors that I'm going to be using. And I already have a batch of chocolate cookie dough made up. And the recipe that I'm using for the sugar cookie dough will be in the comments or description section. So my mixture total comes to 944 grams. And then the bowl was 262 grams. So 942 is your total mass, and then you can divide that by however many individual measurements you want to make. Yum. So that was from 454 grams of butter and 2 cups of sugar and 4 egg yolks and 1 tablespoon of vanilla, and then there's going to be 5 cups of flour going into that, and then a half a teaspoon of baking powder and a half a teaspoon of salt is the flour mixture. So I'm going to make the flour mixture up, and then I'm going to decide, I think I'm going to make 3 colors, so the purple, yellow, and green again. Okay, I've got my 5 cups of baking powder, 5 cups of flour mixed with the baking powder and the salt together, and I'm going to take 2.5 cups out and put that into my wet mix. Okay, there's 2.5. There and there. Okay, so this is the dough after it's been mixed together, and I ended up adding about a tablespoon of flour at a time just to make the dough slightly stiffer because it was a little bit too moist for my liking. You don't want a sticky dough because it's going to heat up even more as you're handling it. You're going to be working the dough with your hands quite a bit, and it will heat up and start to become even more sticky. So a little bit of a drier dough, one that will compress but hold together well, is what you're looking for. Typically, you know, like a cookie dough, but maybe just a little bit on the drier side. So I used half of the 942 of the butter mass, and I've decided to do the 3 colors. So that leaves me 157. 157 times 3 equals 471. So 157 times 3 equals 471, which is what I used for the full recipe of the white sugar cookie dough. So that's my first batch, and now to that I'm going to add my food coloring, and then I'll add the flour. So my first color batch is going to be purple, and it's a little bit lighter than I want. So I just added a little bit more of the Wilton paste gel colorant to it. And then I'm going to mix that up. You can always go darker, but you can't go lighter. So add color very gradually, and you won't be disappointed with your results then. Okay, so I moved the flour over into another bowl, and I'm working with grams because grams is just easier to work with than cups. You American folks need to switch over to the metric system, seriously. Okay, so I have 384 grams of flour left, which makes it 128 grams of flour per color. I'm going to add that now. Okay, I've got my flour added. Now let's see how it. So that's a little bit lighter than I want to be, so I'm going to add a little bit more of the paste color to that now, because it's still not fully incorporated. It'll still mix in really good. Okay, I'm happy with that color. It's lighter than it was with the original batch that I baked, but I think this is going to be better. It's not going to be so dark that it's hardly a contrast between the dark chocolate and then the purple. Okay, this is a no-brainer, but after you do a colored dough, it's probably a good idea to clean out the bowl and definitely clean the paddle, just so that there's no cross-contamination of the colors. My last color is going to be green, but I think I'm going to go for a more lemon lime green instead of a dark green. So I'm going to add green and yellow together and see how that works out. Okay, so there I have my 5 colors. I have the dark chocolate, which I had made yesterday, and then this is the new batch of the plain sugar cookie dough, purple, yellow, and the lime green. And here's my cookie dough tester, and he absolutely loves raw cookie dough, and really, who doesn't? So I have the canes rolled out, and for the next step, don't freeze them or put them in the refrigerator. You want them warm because you're going to be splitting them right down the middle, and then you're going to be inserting another piece of colored cookie dough into the center. If you freeze or refrigerate them, it's going to make them brittle and they're going to split in half, and then you don't really want that. You want them to be able to kind of fold open slightly, and then you're going to put the other dough in and then press them shut again, and then you're going to create a bit of a teardrop shape. So I've got them split using this Sculpey blade, and you need to have, it's thinner than any knife blade I've ever seen. It's basically a razor blade, and it's sharp. You're going to end up deforming you're not going to be completely round, but don't worry about that because you're going to round them up once you get your green stuff in there. So that's the first cuts. I'm going to use my bench scraper now to open them up and then cut the cuts on either side of these at a shallow angle. Okay, so I've opted against putting the side cuts in. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to freeze these, then I'm going to roll out my green dough and cut that into a strip. It'll have to have a tapered end on it. You can see that they're like a wedge shape, but I don't want a thick wedge, I just want a thin wedge at the front. Okay, I've got my green dough pre-rolled out, sized, whatever. Anyways, I'm going to use these, if you do metal clay, you should have these. It's a package of depth gauges, basically. There's a whole bunch of colors there. And then what you can do is roll out your dough to its desired thickness. So I'm going to be rolling it out to a thickness of about that, but then reducing it a little bit further. It's just easier on the dough if you reduce it in increments. And then I'm going to cut the dough to a smaller size again. Okay, there, I've got it all rolled out. Now I'm going to trim it down to an approximate 4.5, 5-inch size, and then cut, I'm going to need 15 strips, so I might end up having to re-roll another batch because I don't think I'll get 15 out of that one. Okay, right. There you can see it's been stretched. I'm now going to trim the ends and take away the red depth gauge and then reduce it down to the purple. So with these green strips, all I did was peel them off of the rolled out bit there, and I've created a, I don't know if you can see that, it's a bit of a wedge shape. So it's thicker at the back end and thinner at the front end. Okay, so I opted against freezing the green because I figured it would be able to mold into the cavity a bit better, and it does. So this is the end result after you've rolled everything together. I ended up with about an 8-inch long cane. It's now going to go into the freezer, and then when I'm ready to bake, I'll take it out and then use a very thin blade again to cut it into the cookies. And it worked out pretty good. I'm pretty happy with the technique, and it's easy. So I just baked one of the offcuts from the original roll after it's now been reduced, and it turned out really good. And over here you can see what the center part of the roll looked like before the petals got added around it, and then you can see how much it's been reduced by. It's quite significant. But fun technique, and you can pretty much do whatever you want with it, and you're only limited by your imagination. So enjoy.